It's often asked, what's the best bang for the buck? For an economy car tuner, you don't really want to spend too much money, right? So what's the easiest thing to gain performance in a car? Make it lighter. As you know, if you have an all-wheel drive car and you do get a flat, you're pretty much gonna want to get a flatbed trailer. Among other things that you can take out are things like the rear seats. And I've done it maybe like 90% of the way. I've left the cushion on the bottom and I've left this board in the back, but underneath there's no spare in there. And this is basically 90% of the weight savings, 40 pounds there and then 30 pounds here. You know, it's a good compromise. The front seat weighs about 40 pounds, so that's also a good savings. From a performance standpoint, handling is often overlooked. A lot of people like to think about performance as raw horsepower or torque, but you know, in these cars you're not going to get it. You're not going to get Hellcat power from an FP20, right? Ever. So you may as well buff some of the positive traits of this all-wheel drive platform. And one of those things is handling. Often overlooked is the steering on these cars. The steering damper lockdown that you can buy for these cars, you can buy either from Torque Solution or Perrin. They allow the steering mechanism to be slightly tightened up by clamping a rubber bushing. That one goes for around $45 to $55, and I think it's a really good, inexpensive mod. You'll definitely feel it in the steering wheel. Another inexpensive but effective mod would be changing out your air filter for an aftermarket one. The OEM ones are great. They work. You can maintain them pretty easily. They're inexpensive. But a higher flow filter will net you possibly 2 to 3 horsepower if you take out the charcoal filter as well. So I think that's around 50 bucks. One of the most inexpensive modifications that I did were the rear subframe bushing inserts. There's 8 of them, and the cost of which was between like $40 and $55 depending on where you buy them. Relatively inexpensive, but noticeably different because they allowed the car to not feel like it's squatting and losing power under acceleration. It's like firming up the chassis. So part of the reason of me modifying my car was just to get a really nice handling street car, and having those bushings added so late in the game, I was like, why didn't I do that, you know, in the beginning? Like even before some of this lower suspension was done and coilovers. I think if you do that, you'll actually feel like the car's a lot more peppy and pushy from the back. A lot of performance out of this chassis actually comes out of this rear suspension. And the next mod that I would suggest for a stock car would be an upgraded 20mm rear sway bar. The upper ranges of inexpensive mods, these Megan trailing links were really surprising once they were installed. For $110, they add a good amount of torque to the rear wheels, which allows you to kind of feel a little bit more sporty when you hit corners, accelerating out of corners, and overall just rear suspension feel, it feels a lot more solid. Why would you want to upgrade those? Because they have something called a pillow ball bushing as opposed to a rubber bushing, which allows power transfer to be a lot more noticeable. I would say that that's probably my favorite mod out of this list. Another good investment is better brake pads. The OEM brake pads are very good when it comes to stopping distances, but the OEM brake pads do not hold up under high heat and high loads. They end up just getting really soft and gushy. Cost per performance. The cost of the front pads are around $100. The rear pads, I don't remember how much they are, but I would actually emphasize the front pads way more than the rear. If you upgrade anything, upgrade your front pads. Next relatively inexpensive mod are these differential bushing inserts. They're aluminum. These are made by Perrin, although there's other companies that make them. They keep the differential from moving around under hard acceleration. And you gotta remember, these cars are all-wheel drive, so half of the power gets distributed to this rear diff. And this rear diff is typically floating on rubber bushings. But once you put these aluminum billet inserts in there, it really tightens down the power transmission to the rear wheels. I think the Crosstrek world could definitely benefit from some of this information. I know life is all about that lifted mountain life, but you know, I think some of you guys in the Crosstrek world kind of overlap with street cars. So maybe you're not like into performance driving. If anything, it's all of these mods will gain efficiency in your car, trying to get the most performance out of a car like this. All of the mods that I've mentioned will gain you better gas mileage because you're making the drivetrain, the intake more efficient. So that's a bonus.